All right, so hi everyone. I am here with Josie and Pharaoh from Reliable Revolutionaries. We are going to be talking about Cite and Release and some other stuff coming along this month. In addition to a plethora of things, you guys can, as always, one second. I hear feedback. Feedback somewhere. Oh nope, it's gone. All right, never mind. And Pharaoh, Josie, would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Josie Garcia. I'm retired Air Force, mom of eight, special needs mom, and leader of the civil rights organization Reliable Revolutionaries right here in San Antonio.
All right, that's cool.
My name is Pharaoh Clark. I'm a civil rights leader and one of the founders of the civil rights organization Reliable Revolutionaries.
So these guys, I had the pleasure of working close with these guys. I got to know these guys over the past few years through the pandemic, through all of the activism, through all of the change and policies that have been going on and stuff like that. These two have been at the forefront of it all. They have been absolutely amazing. My experience with Pharaoh is a unique one because when I first joined the coalition to start talking about stuff and trying to figure out what was going on, I came in with a high passion of ideas, and so there was a clash that I always like to say is like we clashed, but at the end of the day, we respected each other. Like, it was so cool because like it was like the person that had invited me and I had gone with was like, "Do you not know who that is? Oh my goodness, you shouldn't be talking back to someone like that." And then, and then, as you said that, I walked in. He's like, you were like, "No, it's no hard feelings. It's all good. We gotta challenge ideas and stuff like that." And that was one of the most amazing experiences, or I guess introductions to a good relationship that we now have. So.
Definitely. Yeah, I
Uh,
laugh a lot when I think back about that.
and so much has changed. So much has changed. My like a lot of my ideas and passions from there have changed, and I talk about that in the last episode with Val. But like, there's some stuff, and hopefully I'll make a video on it soon. But there's some like perspective changes from petitioning, from being a part of everything, and having those ideas challenged on a day to day basis. On a day to day basis, and in addition, just to have those conversations and different ideas, just see them in action is very interesting as well.
No doubt the same happened for us on a lot of things, and I think that's why it's important when we come to these type of places that are safe environments for us to just discuss our ideas, knowing that neither side is ever 100% correct. But when you meet and you start getting these uncomfortable conversations going on, it leaves both sides or all sides with room to grow. So I really always, that's why I told you on that day, I welcome any conversation, even when it's not specifically what I think, because it challenges my mind then to open up and say, wait a minute, could he be right? So
Mm.
I believe that these are really good for that.
Yeah, I love it. That's why I love these two, man. Like the fact that they came on here and I get to like question them about a lot of stuff is just awesome. So today we're going to be talking about Cite and Release. Uh, if you don't mind, can you guys tell everyone what and Release actually like is like, and where you guys like kind of fall on Cite and Release?
Sure. So cite and release as a law and as a concept. Basically, it is given the opportunity to get a ticket for low level offenses such as misdemeanor drug possession and things of that sort. And really being able to not get incarcerated over these low levels offenses, because what we've noticed and one thing that we've seen that's been prevalent in our society and in San Antonio is that two people from totally opposite ends of the tax bracket. Okay. So meaning that you don't necessarily, it's not necessarily something that is has a race or a color connotation to it, more so of a economical connotation, meaning that if you have the money, you pay the bond, you get out, no problem, right? But for those individuals who can't afford to pay a fine or a fee, they have to stay in jail until they can bond out. Of course, we know that these types of things affect our lower income, which are primarily our Black, Indigenous, and people of color. But really, what we want to get out is the fact that these low-level offenses across the board should be ticketed and people should be released on it. It's not something that is that should be detainable or to the, well, not detainable but arrestable to the point to where somebody has to spend over 24 hours in jail in a jail cell over possessing a little bit of weed. We're in Military City, USA. We have a lot of veterans who have gone to war, come back, who suffer with various psychiatric issues, who depend on things such as marijuana to be able to cope with their daily lives. And so individuals like that, if they're caught with it, generally get arrested and thrown in jail, and then they have to bond out. And we're really looking to fight against that, because what we want to see happen more so is there being a more even playing field for everybody, not just based on your economic status. And that's really what we want to get out to everybody, is the fact that those are the types of things that we need to fight for, because those are the things that are keeping us repressed as people, oppressed as people of color, and disadvantaged economically. And so if this is something that we can and work to change within our community, then we can also help to relieve some of the problems that we have in the jail of overpopulation. Because we've heard many times over the last 7-8 months in our advocacy that the jails are overpopulated. And so when we started doing our research to see how were these jails overpopulated and what was going on there, we saw a lot of people that are incarcerated that really shouldn't be. And it's because they can't bond out.
Yeah. Did you want to expand on any of that, Pharaoh?
No, I think she talked a lot about exactly what we're talking about, which is the targeting of minority communities where they're being incarcerated for low-level offenses. And because of the cash bond system, they're unable to bail themselves out. They get stuck into a spot where they have to deal with these lawyers that are I can't think of the word. What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm like,
I just had a brain fart on that. They have to deal with the lawyers, the legal aid.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think of the word for the lawyers that they get afforded when you don't have the cash to pay for it.
Oh.
The public attorneys, the public defenders.
The public defenders. The public defenders. So they get forced into a system where they have to take public defenders, which don't really truly represent them. Instead, they just get them into signing a deal. Mm-hmm. And so then they're forced to have convictions on their record for low-level offenses. And these convictions plague them for the rest of their life, because when they're told to go get a job to pull themselves up, to rehabilitate themselves, but they're not able to get meaningful wages based off of convictions that happen. And many of them were very minute offenses. So we'd like to definitely see a lot change with that.
Okay. Yeah, so that kind of goes into my second question about, like, how does this benefit the community and stuff like that. So, like, I don't know if you guys want to elaborate on that, but it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what you guys are saying, it basically allows people to get citations instead of getting arrested and thrown in jail, so they can go on with their lives, right?
Correct. Sometimes something as simple as going to jail and having to bail out, if you think about it, something that could take a 24-hour process. Imagine somebody who's already doing bad, and now they get arrested for some low-level offense like possession of marijuana. And they now have to call their job and explain to their job that they won't be into work because they're in jail waiting to be bailed out. Mm-hmm. So sometimes a cite and release can save somebody from losing a job, which then can in turn save them from losing an apartment, which then can make sure that the family stay together and are not broken. So it seems so simple, but it really feeds into a lot of different things. When you talk about taking someone, throwing them in jail, now they no longer have a job, their record scarred, so it's hard for them to get their next job. Mm-hmm. And then it starts to just keep the circle perpetuating of poverty.
Okay. And it also perpetuates the fact that, let's just talk about men in general, right? Because I just wanted to just speak about the man that is incarcerated. Okay. If a man is breadwinner for his family. He's incarcerated for this low-level offense. Let's just say he had, an ounce of weed on him. We'll just throw that out there. He's incarcerated for, well, I guess an ounce is good. Well, 2 ounces. Okay. I'm trying to think of the laws surrounding what you could get picked up for. But,
Oh, no, you get picked up for any amount.
Any amount,
yeah,
yes.
any amount.
I mean, prosecutable and things of that sort, which leads us to even talk about, we had multiple conversations with the DA. What was very interesting was like, he's like, I don't want to prosecute any marijuana charges. He was like, I don't want to be prosecuting these low-level drug offenses, but it's still up to the discretion of Bexar County sheriffs as well as SAPD on whether or not they want to arrest. Okay, and so of course they have their decision to make whether or not they want to arrest, but we kind of want to take that out of being a possibility, because we all know, I mean, especially doing our police advocacy, there's those people out there who are targeting specifically minority men of color. Okay. So let's say, this man is put in jail. A lot of times what we're hearing, they can't even contact their jobs to say that they got picked up. So they're automatically fired just for not calling in. Okay. And then they're trying to call in and say, hey, no, I was actually picked up. Well, you went to jail, so now we don't want you. And so now this person, as Pharaoh mentioned, their records are scarred. What other option do they have? One thing that we keep hearing is, oh, police your own. You need to police your own and, teach your own communities. But you guys got to realize that a lot of crime and a lot of things that are done are out of necessity. And it's necessity to provide for your family. It's necessity to provide for yourself. It's the dignity of a human being being able to provide for his children, for his wife, for his, his mother. There's a lot of people that we've been grateful to be able to work with who are formerly incarcerated, who are like, Miss Josie, I just need to take care of my mom. My mom's sick. I got thrown in Bexar County for having a little bit of marijuana on me. And now I'm out. I don't have a job. What do I do? The only thing I can do is go back to hustling because it's what I know. And it's up to us to break that cycle, and getting this law, this cite and release law enacted to where, it's blanket across the board. Like you do not pick somebody up and take them to jail for committing this offense. You just give them a ticket. That way the person still has a job. They can afford to pay the ticket. And then in turn, they pay their debt to society and can continue on being productive members of society.
Okay. So so that was a lot. That was a lot to unpack right there. I want to backtrack a little bit, because I know you said that the DA doesn't want to prosecute people specifically for low marijuana offenses. In some of the research that I was doing, I found out that, like, I think don't too quote me on this, but I know it's a high number. I know at least it's like 93% of low marijuana cases got released, or they got rejected, I should say. Can you guys explain what happens when a case gets rejected by the DA?
Okay, so what happens with rejection is when the DA's already kind of spoke in favor of cite and release, but on occasion, the police officers are still arresting people, which is what we're advocating against, because it's left up to an officer's discretion. We know that I believe it's somewhere around 66% of the time they're choosing to arrest. It's in a higher level. So what happens is when it gets to the level of the DA's office is he's rejecting these cases because of the fact that they're low level. They don't really warrant that type of, a sentencing. However, what happens with that is, think about this, you're arrested. Because you're arrested, you lose your job. You still have to pay the couple $100 to $1,000 to bail out. You bail out, you have to pay for a lawyer, you go to trial just to get it rejected.
Okay, so you still go through because from what I read, when rejecting a case, it means that there's no prosecution, or there's no, like, the case just drops. I didn't know there was a whole.
It doesn't just drop. It doesn't just drop. You still get arrested. They still, because that's up to the discretion of the officer. So the officer still files a case.
Okay.
You still have to show up for your initial court appearance.
Okay.
And then at that court appearance, when you show up, the DAs, the assistant DA, which will be there representing on behalf of the county, they're the ones that then will choose that, hey, this was a low level offense. It doesn't fall, on the spectrum of what we're dealing with. They then decide to reject the case. But at that point, you've still gone through arrest. You've still gone through bail. You've still gone. Imagine if you can't bail yourself out. You're sitting in jail 30 days before you go see a judge just to have your case rejected.
Wow.
So even at that point, you're happy that it's rejected, but aren't there steps that we could have taken before it gets to that point?
The damage has already been done.
The damage is done.
Okay. All right. Well then.
Oh, we didn't mention the towing of the car, because your vehicle gets towed.
Yeah.
So there you are, a couple $100 out for that. If you stay in jail for any amount of time, it goes up $100 a day. So, I mean, there's a lot of different, it's very damaging to a community that's already struggling. When you're talking about your minority, Black and brown communities, they're already struggling. And so getting hit with something like that can come out to one offense costing multiple thousands of dollars, that's a problem.
Yeah. No, agreed. Josie, would you like to expand on any of that, or?
No, exactly. The damage is already done by that. And just really think about it. It's like, I lost all of that. I lost my job. And now I have to come out with $2,000-$3,000 for them just to say that they don't even want to prosecute me to begin with. That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, and it's really unfair, and it's not doing a service to an already damaged community, like Pharaoh mentioned.
Okay. So then, and I want to address those concerns, but I also know that they are pushing to expand Cite and Release. I know that they're going to be adding more. There you go. They're going to be adding. They want to add an array of drugs, not just marijuana, to things like ecstasy, cocaine, methamphetamines, and so on and so forth, heroin. In addition to that, they want to add graffiti, and they want to add low-level property damage and stuff like that, anywhere from $100 to $750. As basically almost every non-violent crime that exists is looking to be expanded under this new address. But for some reason, with all of the arrays of expansions, graffiti somehow sticks out as the one most people are concerned about. As I'm all like, so it's not the drugs or the property damage. It's people are looking at like graffiti, and there's multiple sides of this. In one report, McManus says that graffiti hasn't really been a problem in the last 10 years of San Antonio, and that he feels like it shouldn't be added to under the new Cite and Release proposal. Ms. Shannon thinks that the Bexar County government of affairs, she believes that it should be added under. And in addition, Joe Gonzalez says that he doesn't want to add it. He doesn't feel like it needs to be added, and he doesn't want to add it under the new Cite and Release, saying that even going as far as to say that it's not included in the proposal, even though under the list items it looks like that's generally what's being proposed. So I just, from an outside perspective, I want to know, why is graffiti such a controversial subject to be added in the proposal or into the new Cite and Release or not? And then where do you guys, as individuals or as together, where do you guys fall under this this new proposal? Like, do you think graffiti should be included? Do you think it's just not even worth the time? And this is graffiti damage anywhere from $100 to $700.
I will say that I think people's concern over the graffiti right now is, we've just had, 8 months of civil unrest here. You know what I mean? We've had 8 months of protests. We've had 8 months of, people really expressing themselves through the power of protest, and they're not happy, right? But I think what's happening is that people's perception of the protest is spilling over into the perception of graffiti. Okay, they don't want to see the entire city being tagged up with graffiti, which I can understand that. But if McManus came out and said himself that there's not an issue with graffiti, then I'm not sure. For me, I'm not sure why it would be such a fight to try to add it on right now, into this current cite and release laws that change that we're working on. Because for me, I don't believe graffiti should be an arrestable offense. However, when we're looking at the bigger picture of getting a cite and release order passed, I do believe that focusing on the substances, if you will, I view substance abuse as a public health crisis. I personally view alcoholism as a public health crisis. These are also mental health issues. So when you have somebody who utilizes substance in order for them to navigate this world, I don't think they should be incarcerated for that. And you know, I am a veteran with PTSD, so a lot of my advocacy is around, you know, veterans with PTSD, you know. But I believe that the way that somebody personally affects themselves is on themselves, and they don't need to be locked up for it. When you're damaging somebody else's property, where I don't believe you should be locked up for graffiti. I think you should be fined. However, when you're damaging somebody else's property, that's damage to their property and them. You know, because regardless, it is something that they're going to have to fix. They're going to have to pay to repair. And I'm just, myself personally, I don't agree with damaging other people's property.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with a lot of that. What my feeling is personally is that I understand that the graffiti, and I understand that some of the property damages wanted to be added on the cite and release, but I feel that could take away from what we're trying to do with cite and release. And I think that adding that can be very hurtful to us. For one, we're advocating for a cite and release to deal with victimless crimes. These are crimes that affect no one but that person. If you start to add things that are, you know, property damage up to such amount, graffiti up to such amount, well, then now you run the risk of where we start to get blamed for anything that happens in the city. Everything that happens in the city, whoever advocated for that will be, you know, the ones to be blamed. And I don't think that we want to see our city where we have property damage or graffiti going out of control, and then it's linked back to people that were actually trying to help and advocate for the community. And I think even some of the people that live in these communities would be affected by the graffiti and by the property damage. So I'm 100% behind the cite and release when it comes to victimless crimes. You know, there's no one that's been hurt. But if you deal with something like graffiti or something like property damage, someone's hurt there. You know, if this was released, and I don't know what the numbers are. I don't think, you know, I know that it's been done in other cities, so I'd have to look and tell you what the specific numbers are. But let's say it was done, and then property damage rises, graffiti rises all over the city, someone still has to pay for that. Someone still has, so that business owner that's negatively affected or impacted, they still have to pay to restore their business to its, you know, rightful condition. And so that becomes my problem with that, is what do we tell the business owner when we say, hey, well, you know, sorry that your business keeps getting broken into, or it got the windows busted out, but it fell under this amount, so just keep repairing it.
Oh, well, and just to tag on to that, from the research that I found, I know that San Marcos has graffiti under their cite and release. They also have cite and release as a law, as opposed to other cities like Dallas and Fort Worth and even San Antonio, where it's just kind of a policy rather than an actual law that's been voted in. But under their cite and release, they and I know San Antonio through Joe Gonzalez, he says he's adopted systems for mental health and stuff like that, rehabilitation programs. I don't know if San Marcos has the same exact one, but I know that graffiti is under them from $107 to $150, and those are just issued citations rather than arrest, as opposed to people who do graffiti or property damage getting arrested and going through all of that as well. Now, I don't really fall in any particular camp. It seems like both people seem to have their opinions about it. But from what I can tell, that from San Marcos's example and from places like Dallas and Fort Worth who have incorporated graffiti as well into their programs, it is a possible thing where they just want to make sure it's all non-violent, low offense crimes. Now, what do you guys?
I can tell you that it's something that I'd be open to looking and more studying how it affects them over time, because it's not something that I'm closed off to. It's just something that concerns me as far as how it's going to look and play out. But if it's something, let's say where we were able to say 2-3 years, we're able to look at San Marcos and say, hey, look, these guys adopted this policy. They have not had 150% increase in graffiti. They haven't had this, you know what I mean? We're able to say, this is what's happened. These are the metrics for it. And it makes sense. We've helped people stay out of jail. We've helped these business owners that were affected. We came up with the plan and we helped them get their businesses back together. And it was better for everybody. If we can come with something like that, it's something I'm definitely open to. I would just want to see how that looks and how it's played out in other cities before I made such a decision to put my name on it. And then, if it blows up.
I see, yeah. Because that seems to be a lot of the concerns around it. And like just doing the little bit of research, I could see where those concerns are happening and stuff under cite and release.
Yeah, I think some of my concerns with that are, we're at a pass right now locally where some people believe it should be all or none, right? Like we should have, graffiti should be there, or, we're not happy and we need to go back to the drawing board and, come up with a plan, but for me, I really feel like if we can tackle pieces at a time, that might be effective as well, because I'm nervous for the all or none thought process, because we have to find a way that we can gain ground still. So I would really like to visit that more as well, just like Pharaoh said, and see if there's a way that we can, come up with some type of a plan and proposal in the future, that could maybe address that. But I really don't want us to back off of pursuing the possession for folks as something that we really shoot for and go hard for, because like Pharaoh mentioned, it's a victimless crime. There's semantics. People say, oh, well, the families are victimized when people abuse drugs and, things like that. However, when we're talking about possession, I think that there's a lot of work that we can do immediately on that.
Okay.
And you know what? I actually favor what you saying that. I actually favor something somewhat of a tier system. Maybe coming up with what's the first thing we get through. And then we see how that goes, and then the next level, the next level, the next level.
Oh, okay.
All being able to, you get what I'm saying? And all while you're being able to gauge and watch the metrics and make sure that you're not seeing this dramatic spike. And maybe as this has gone well, okay, let's add some more things to that list. I'm afraid of rushing too many things in at once and then having to deal with all of that
at once,
at once. If we come up with a tier system, I'm very in favor of getting this in, looking and seeing how that plays out, look at what we're able to bring back, and then pushing the next level through, and then pushing the next level through. But that way, we're also able to see if there's any errors in that. We're able to stop that immediately and kind of rewind, get back to the drawing board.
Okay. So then, I guess my question is, because through these low level crimes, through these minor offenses, they I know when they first get their citation, they get their 60-day limit through the diversions program. What are you guys' thoughts on this 60-day limit? Because From the study I have seen, almost about 84% of people don't actually get to make it to their court date, and they have outstanding warrants or something or some other, and they end up getting arrested anyway, even though they went through the citation program, even though they went through the diversions program, that 60-day limit to get all of their things done. Sometimes people don't have a car to go to the rehabilitation center. These are all concerns that have come up with this 60-day limit that is written into Cite and Release. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I definitely think that we would have to expand and on that limit. I think that they need more time. Just like you said, there are various reasons. It seems simple, 60 days, but when you're talking about something that's been thrown in your life unexpectedly, it's not always that simple to shuffle things around and move things. And you have to have bosses that understand, daycares in place, and all types of other things that go into truly understanding if this person's capable of doing that. A lot of people are on VIA. VIA itself is not what it used to be due to the pandemic and things like that. So you have to really take into effect people's lives. 60 days sounds like it's plenty amount of time and they should be able to get it together. However, you're not accounting for everyday things that could go on. So I definitely think that it should be longer than 60 days. I do understand that rules have to be in play to make sure that it actually gets done. But at the same time, they need to have sufficient time to be able to get it done.
I concur. 60 days, I don't know. I just kept thinking over and over again, 180 days, 180 days, 180 days. The 180-day rule, boy, it's afforded to some.
Yes.
Inside joke, I guess, for us police accountability folks, right?
Yeah.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? If there's 180 days that you're allowed for the chief to be able to investigate bad police officers who are committing crimes, then I think 180 days should be enough for somebody to try to get their life back on track after having to be incarcerated and have to pay these tickets and fines and different things and go through this program. I think 180 days is probably a little bit more feasible, for people who are already suffering economically, materialistically, like you said, the vehicle. Well, not even having a vehicle is not a materialistic thing. It's a necessity. But like you said, all of those factors, I think the 180 days would better suit them.
Okay. Is there any way to actually impose that change on the new Cite and Release proposal? Is there any way to address that? Because I know that's just a hard limit that they have set, and I don't know if there's any way to actually change that, or if there is, could you guys enlighten us a little bit?
I'm not 100% sure about that, but I definitely think that it's something that they could change. It'd be simple, I would say, as the DA agreeing to it and it going from there. And I think that he'd be open to it. Honestly, we've met with him in the past, and he seems pretty open to working with the community with getting certain things done. So I think if we hold him to that and kind of meet with them on those issues, I think it's something that definitely we might be able to get done.
Okay. All right, cool. So is there anything that the community can do about that? Can they call the DA's office and let them know, or is it something that solely depends on your guys' negotiations with the DA and how he proceeds?
No, not at all. We're community driven and community led. Everything we do is based off of the call from the community, and they have just as much of a voice and a right to a voice as we do. All they have to do to get involved with that is be as simple as emailing, calling, getting in touch with the DA's office, and voicing your concern for this. They will answer, and you tell them what your concerns are, what you would like to see happen, and you can be just as much of a part of the process as anybody else. And also showing up and advocating in commissioner's court and things like that to help push the needle further along. And I always think the more the merrier.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. We welcome anybody who wants to be a part of Cite and Release policies, or anybody who wants to join in on the conversation and advocate. Call the DA, tell them what you think. You could also find us on Reliable Revolutionaries SA on Facebook. That's our primary social media. If you want to be a part of any Cite and Release policy talks, shoot us a message on there. We are community driven, and the more members of the community we have standing with us and beside us, the more effective we're going to be. With Reliable Revolutionaries, our motto is we go from protest to policy. So we need you to be present, even for the protest and for the things such as commissioners court and city council.
Definitely.
So now I'm going to get into the real meat of why I wanted to talk about Cite and Release is there is a lot of concerns. That was one of the main things from the community at large about Cite and Release as a whole, not just the certain 60-day limits, not just certain these things, but there's concerns that like it's not actually benefiting the community. And I wrote them down because it was a lot, and I don't think I could have memorized them that in one day in the little research that I did. But so I am going to read them off. But from what I've found, here are a few of the concerns. There is the fact, as you mentioned earlier, that police officers have discretion of whether they choose to arrest someone or not. They don't always have to give them a cite and release. At least in San Antonio. I know I think San Marcos is the only one where it's established law. Everyone else, it's just policy. And since the police officer has discretion, he could still profile, he can still choose whether to arrest the person or not. In addition, a lot of criticisms come under Cite and Release that's saying it's not a true alternative to arrest because of this, that they rather see it as, they see it as more of a half measure, something that doesn't really fix the issue, something that doesn't really address the problems or concerns that are going in, but just an alternative way to charge the low-income communities. I know that even though there have been reports, and Joe Gonzalez himself and McManus have said that 500 people have avoided jail under Cite and Release, there's not a specification of what those people, who those people are. In the little research I have found, over 3,000 people of all diversities, of all ages and genders and stuff like that, over 3,000 people have actually been arrested under Cite and Release, under the Bexar County police report from SAPD, from their quarterly report. So I read both the one that happened over the summer and the one that just happened from August all the way into like November. And obviously the new discussion's coming up tomorrow, January 12th. Of the new Cite and Release. So it looks like there's going to be another quarterly report for that hasn't been addressed yet. But from the recent ones from the previous year, we have at least 64% of people getting arrested under Cite and Release, and about 66% of those arrests have gone through convictions. They've been convicted, and they've gotten fined at bare minimum, depending on the crime, up to $2,000 or as little as $2,000 and 6 months in jail. In addition to all of this, it seems like the main targets of Cite and Release arrests are Hispanics and African Americans, with Hispanics leading the arrest rate at 2,558 arrests, and African Americans close behind with 645. Arrest right under that. So a lot of people are very concerned with that. This is just robbing the lower income community, that it's not a true economic change, and it's not a real change for what is going on in their community, as people are still of color and who are black and who are of indigenous are still getting arrested under Cite and Release. That people are still getting fined, and even if they're not under Cite and Release, even if the case gets rejected, or even if they go through Cite and Release, they are still inconvenienced in some way because they still have to pay a fine under cite and release. It's not like those things go away. They still have to pay and then do whatever rehabilitation, whether it's taking a driving course, whether it's doing rehab, whether it's doing community service. They still have to do that and pay. So that's taking time away from both their job, their rescheduling their whole entire life around, which is something they'd have to do even if they were thrown in jail. In addition, it seems like a lot of this benefits the police officers and the police department, as when stated, the main benefit, as Joe Gonzalez and McManus have said, the main benefit from cite and release for them is the fact that police officers are able to get back into the field quicker, and it makes their paperwork less. And a lot of people have criticized this, saying it's just another way to attack the low income community. As the main benefit seems to be they can go back. There is less paperwork. So even though they're not making arrests and going through a long and arduous process, they could still issue out citations at whim and do that at a much faster rate. So what are you guys' thoughts about some of these criticisms that people have concerns about? And yeah, just what are your thoughts in general?
All right. So for me, I feel that I agree. I agree that cite and release still definitely needs to be pushed further on a lot of these on a lot of these things. Like, people know that I'm for full legalization. However, right now, while it is state law and that we can't, the city can't basically supersede the state. So that's something we can't have. Cite and release is the closest that we have. But some of the laws and what's being fought for in cite and release is specific ordinances that would make it harder for an officer to use discretion. So we need to work not only with the city, but also with the sheriff's department and McManus on making the policies that say, hey, officer's first choice is cite and release, not their discretion. And on cases where they choose that, hey, whatever for whatever case or for whatever the case may be, I feel that this was a situation that I can rest on. They need to be able to explain that. So we need to make it to where cite and release is the first choice, not the secondary choice. And that's what we're trying to craft with the cite and release laws that are going forward. And I think not only on the city side, but also talking with the police departments to make sure that everyone's on the same page, from the DA to the police departments to the city, on this is how we're moving forward with cite and release. And if an officer does make a discretion that says, hey, we're going to charge you for whatever reason, they need to be able to show what that reason was. Mm-hmm. And this will also stop it from being racially biased, where I can choose to let one person go but choose to arrest another person. I would have to specifically state what that reasoning is. And as far as it goes with benefiting the police department, I definitely see the concern there with the fact that they're able to, get out quicker. They're able to write a ticket and get right back on the force, and maybe write another ticket and another ticket. So I do see the concern there. But I would still say that we're better off advocating for cite and release than not at all, because when you're dealing with cite and release, you're still saying this person now has no record. This person is paying a fine, but it's still nowhere near the fine of if you get 2-3 years on probation, which you have to pay supervisory fees, urinary analysis fees, you have to pay court fees and fines. So you're taxed way more. You're talking about a $5,000 probably minimum on that system versus the $2,000 on the cite and release. So I don't think that we're at where it's perfect at all, but I definitely think that with cite and release, you're on the better end of the stick than if you get on with just, hey, let's leave it how it is. Where right now, we know for a fact that you're going to go through fines, you're going to go through jail time, you're going to go through probation, which leads you on a perpetuating circle. Many people that start on probation, they find it hard to ever truly get off of probation, which leads you into another problem where we see the recidivism rates going through the roof because they're almost set up to fail.
Okay. Did you want to expand on that, Josie?
No, I'm with it 100%. I agree. One thing that I really want to remind you all of is that, our jails here in Bexar County are overflowing.
Mhm.
Okay. COVID is running rampant right now through the Bexar County Jail, where cite and release isn't a end all be all and a saving mechanism for our minority communities. It is still something that we can work towards enacting or getting stronger policies for, to kind of help alleviate the overcrowding in the jails, because a large portion of the people that are awaiting trial or waiting to see the judge in Bexar County are there on low level nonviolent offenses.
Okay. Yeah, because like that, and it seems like because like the main concern that I see is the fact that cite and release for certain communities is no different than getting arrested. Like cite and release doesn't actually do much for them. So even though it does give a lot of better opportunities, that 500 pales in comparison to the overwhelming amount of like 2,000, a little over 2,000 people um, getting arrested and thrown into to jail. Because I like 500 is a good number, and I'm glad those 500 people avoided getting thrown in jail. But they don't because I couldn't find any research that specifies what those 500 are. When I looked at the actual police reports, the quarterly data, it seemed like, from what I remember, and I don't want to misquote, but I know the numbers were low as far as the release rate was. I believe Hispanics were done under 34% release rate. African Americans were done under a 37% release rate. And white people were done under a 40% release rate, with a grand total of 37 as an average release rate for anyone who's been arrested, regardless of race or gender or age. Um, so 37%, while it's not nothing, that's not great when you're dealing with, you know, quite a few thousand for low non-offense crimes, non-violent crimes, or and such. Oops, I did the doopy dee doop. I went to go to another tab and it closed out of this one. My bad. But yeah, but so that's a lot of the concerns that they seem to be looking at, where it's like people are still getting arrested under cite and release and stuff like that. People are still, and they're not truly releasing the release rate numbers, because I believe it was like, out of all of those people, I think maybe like out of the 645 African Americans that got arrested, I think it's like anywhere from 49 to 60 of them actually got released. Between the Hispanics, it was about 182, and between the white people, they got like, I think, 645. So it was three less than African Americans, but their release rate was also 608. So like you're seeing these disparities under cite and release when you just look at the report, the actual data, like from the SAPD Berry County office, they're just quarterly report as is. And when you actually look at this data, you see that cite and release has this very diminishing return for low income or people of color even communities, despite the fact that both Joe Gonzalez and McManus saying that it benefits both higher income and lower income communities. You're seeing still this racial profiling. You're still seeing this arrest rate at a skyrocketing rate. In some cases, in older reports, the rate of conviction was 84%, with a diminishing return of 14% being actually released under cite and release. So those are the main concerns. Like you guys said, it's not a perfect system, but do you guys want to address any of that or talk about any of that? Or
No, I think that you're right, but I think that's why we're pushing for this ordinance to be something that's respected on all sides, because right now what's going on with cite and release, which we already have a version of it going on, it's ineffective because the fact that we've still left it to human error.
Mhm.
Anytime we say, well, we're going to give the officer the full discretion of whether he's going to arrest or release, you're still dealing with that level of bias that may be there. You're still
Mhm.
dealing with other factors that may be there that may say, hey, I'd rather the arrest. I don't want the cite and release. So we need to put in place rules, laws, ordinances, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
that are going to say this is what happens if you get arrested or if you get stopped and you have this going on, but it's under whatever those rules are,
Mhm.
you are getting a ticket.
Okay.
The only way you're going to jail is if it's some extreme circumstances, which then the officer needs to document and be able to speak on why I decided to go with jail versus going with the cite and release.
Yeah.
And so we need to make it to where it's not an option,
Mhm.
where this is what happens.
Mhm.
And that's what I think, because I agree 100% where when it's the option, we're not seeing enough of it applied.
Mhm.
And so we're seeing, yes, it's great that some people got out, but what about all the people who did not get out? What about these people that were negatively impacted? What about some of these people that I said that won't be able to recover from the damage that was done
Mhm.
from this arrest? So I would like to see very much so a lot more effort put into how we're going to address the situation of discretion. The officer's discretion, it needs to be controlled a little bit more on why would you not let this person go if it falls under these various rules.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna. The one thing that I wanted to say was I want to see all those people who did get locked up.
No,
When we're here talking about the demographic of the 500 people who were cited and released, like I'm curious of what the demographic was totally, for everybody
for the release.
You know what I
If
mean? So I know that's for another show.
yeah.
But
I
it
can
just
probably
makes you
send that
think.
to you afterwards. It is right there if you like, for anyone who wants to look this information up, by the way. I did just a simple Google search of what is cite release, and all of
Yeah.
these articles popped up, and one of them, actually two of them, were you can go to San Antonio Gov under the municipality, under the police department, under public safety. Look at the public safety report of cite and release for whichever quarter. There's multiple quarters because we haven't had it for that long. A year and a half, I think, is how long we've had it. And a lot of these concerns have mostly come up recently. I believe one of the articles I saw was November 2019. Another one was written in November 2020. Some were written in June 2020, and so on and so forth, just because has been addressed. And also, reports even say, or some reporters criticize these findings from the San Antonio Police Department because, as you guys know, and for anyone who at home who doesn't know, police officers do not have to report when they pull someone over and give them a warning. So they feel like the release numbers are a little bit skewed because there are still police officers who pull people over, harass them, or catch them for whatever they're doing, but then they let them go, and they feel like those numbers should be included in the cite and release, but are not, because they are not reported, and police officers are not required to report every single person they pull over, every single person they stop and search and whatnot, because they don't have to report, because it wasn't an arrest, it wasn't a citation, so there's nothing to report, even though there was a stop, there was all this other stuff, which is another criticism under cite and release, but an overall criticism of police reporting in general. But people feel like those warnings, every time a police officer stops someone and does a search or stuff like that, even if they let them go, even though if there's no citation or there's no arrest, people feel like police officers should still report that under cite and release, because they still are releasing them even though they found some type of no non-violent or low-level crime. Thoughts on that, guys? If I know that was just kind of like an information dump, but yeah.
The only what I'd be curious about on as far as when it comes to I guess I'll say the stop and go, because it's not really a cite and release.
Okay, stop it. Yeah, that's what it's called. It's stop and frisk. That's what they call it. Stop and frisk.
So I would like to find out, more data on that, just for informative purposes. but I also don't think that I don't think that it would make a good difference, because I think if they were required to report everyone they stopped and found something on, then that would just lead to them arresting or citing more people. Because now I'm not going to just let you go. Now, because I'm forced to report it, now I'm going to actually make a deal about it, because they're not. So I think that it could have a negative impact if we start making them keep track of everyone who they let go with the warning. They may feel like a reason to give less warnings.
Okay.
Because now my warnings are going to be scrutinized.
Oh, that's. See,
so what if I just say, well, now I'll arrest everybody. Now that way it's 100% the same across the board.
I think it's just the less amount of paperwork would be coming, but I see the concern. I see the thing.
And also, to touch on that paperwork issue from earlier, I actually, even though it comes with the bad thing as far as if they get out on the field in less time, and that just means they're writing more tickets. At the same time, it's a good thing for us, not if they're writing more tickets, but the fact that these officers that are on the taxpayer dollar and they arrest somebody for an offense, and now they're tied up for 3 to 6 hours to fill out reports on that. That's an entire shift this officer's been pulled from, yet they're being paid for. So I see that as
Are you good?
Just apologies, my phone was about to die on us.
No, it's okay. It's okay. That was really intense.
Sorry.
All right, yeah, you're good. Pharaoh, you were saying again, I believe it was you were saying that, like, now that police officer's tied up for 6 to 3 hours or something like that.
Yes, I was saying that it could, I see it as a double edge, because although you wouldn't want to think, well, now that officer is out, he's just going to be writing more tickets and more tickets and more tickets, which is definitely a possibility. But the good thing you have is that you don't have officers being tied up all day on paperwork. Because if that officer is sitting there for 3 to 6 hours on paperwork, well, they're taking my dollars and your dollars to sit there at that desk. And I think we all know that if I could get paid for 6 hours of paperwork, that's exactly what I'll do. I think that's a problem. I think we need to make sure that our dollars are being used productively. And it's not productive to have this officer tied up for 3 to 6 hours filling out paperwork on something that was such a low-level offense a ticket could have done.
So I guess my question to that would be, wouldn't the benefit, though, because we have seen McManus and Joe Gonzalez say that it is easier for them to get back into the field. That is the benefit. That is the sole benefit to cite and release, is the fact that it is less paperwork. It is easier for them to create more citations. And what we've seen in the data is that they have issued more citations, and we have seen arrests. So that is a general concern. So for those, for what I can see is, wouldn't it benefit then for that one police officer to deal with just that one person, rather than them being able to go out and get like 5 people in the same amount of time, just because they can do less of the paperwork?
Not really. It's more damaging to us, I would think, as taxpayers, because this is how, and this is just my opinion on it, but this is what's going to happen in my mindset. Because if they're thinking on the lines of money, they're not going to say, well, we're going to stop because that officer's tied up making a report. We're just going to hire 5 times as many officers. And then if that guy's tied up making reports, where this guy's going out on the field, and that guy, they run this like a business. So they're not going to stop making money because Joe is tied up. They're going to send out John. So I don't think that is relevant to the actual point. What I think has to happen there is we have to start thinking about, do we want this officer tied up doing nothing, which is what he's doing when he's filing this report, or do we want him out there in the community protecting, serving, and doing whatever else his list of jobs is supposed to be? Okay. Now, I think right now, currently, we have some questions about that, because we probably want him tied up so he can't harass the community. But then again, that also asks the question, we have a serious problem when that's what we think. You get what I mean? When we have to figure out, do we want our officer tied up for 6 hours on a ticket so he can't get back to the community? That's a serious issue we have. So we know we need our officers back in the community, but we need to make sure that they're not harassing. We need to make sure that they're not doing these things. And that's where people like you, me, Josie, that's where we come in. where we're monitoring and keeping an eye on those numbers, on those metrics, because we need to be able to be the whistleblowers when we say, hey, wait a minute, why is 3 times the amount of citations coming in now? Now we have to pull the plug on this, and we have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we're going to do. So I don't say that we leave the system broken just because it's, at least it's broken, but at least it still helps. No. We have to get this system working the way it's supposed to work. That officer should be citing and releasing, because on most of those cases, he shouldn't even be issuing a citation. They should be free to go. But we know with the current laws, cite and release is one of the best options that there is. So he should be citing, he should be releasing, and he should be back on the street doing his job. But his job should not be harassing and trying to look for reasons to get more citations. But that's something where we can be monitoring. So if we know that this year 2,000 citations came in, but next year it's 6,000 citations, we have a problem. We immediately need to push the brakes on, and we immediately need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what are we going to do to make sure that that's not the case. For one thing, we have to start looking at probable cause and what all reasons an officer even has to be able to stop someone of color. You have to start digging into the deeper things, not just the person of color, but when we're talking about the communities of color being overly policed or overly harassed, then we have to start looking at how do we address that? How do we start talking and saying, hey, you can't just pull over any car you think because this guy has a hat on backwards. You can't just pull this car over because it's a low rider. You can't pull this one over because it's sitting on 22-inch rims. We have to start getting into that. And that's when you can start seeing a reduction in the rate of how many people they are able to cite, because in order to stop them, you need to be able to prove that you had an adequate reason to stop them. If you have no proof, and it can't just be, oh, well, it was suspicion. Anything is suspicion. No, we need to get back to real policing, common sense policing. And we need to say, if you don't have probable cause to stop this car, you don't stop that car.
I know through our advocacies, we've heard stories from former law enforcement officials. And one thing that was told to us was when an officer is pulling someone over for a traffic stop, the traffic stop is between him and the driver. Okay. So one thing that we've been finding is that an officer will pull over a driver for a traffic stop and then go ahead and pull everybody else out and card everybody else and want to see everybody else's ID and search everybody else's stuff. So that's another thing that we have to talk about, because when this individual was speaking to us, they were talking about ways to be better officers, right? Because this individual happened to be somebody who, grew up in the barrio, who had gone through a lot of things in his life, and he became a police officer himself because he wanted to mentor and to make a difference. And that was one of his big things to us was, there's people out there that are wearing this badge who are just overzealous. They pull somebody over and then all of a sudden they see a couple of kids in there in wife beaters and their hats on backwards. And all of a sudden, oh, I want to see everybody's ID. All right, everybody get out now. Oh, whose bag is this? Okay, I'm going to search everybody's bags, and that, that needs to be definitely addressed because, as he said, when you're pulling over somebody in a traffic stop, the stop has to do with that individual, the driver, not everybody in the vehicle.
So then I guess my question would be, because we talked about earlier, if not reporting every single time one of these stops happens, like if not reporting any time a police officer issues a warning, how do we monitor the harassment under a police officer under cite and release? Because if they can just go ahead and pull someone over and not report it, and we can't keep track of that metric, how do we keep track of this type of profiling that we often see, especially in this type of data with cite and release and through these arrests?
That's a great question, and hopefully one that they can answer pretty soon.
That was a beautiful answer.
Hopefully one they come up with real soon.
Okay.
I tell you one thing that I would like to see.
Okay.
And I know officers would not like this probably, but I would like to see that through body cam footage, we need body cameras that automatically engage every single time that officer comes into contact with anybody. Every time he stops and is doing any type of business or interaction between him and a civilian, that camera should be recording. And I also believe that we should have a database in which regular citizens, you or I, can go back and pull any of these interactions right off the internet, because it's all should be public property, because they're all doing business on behalf of the citizens that pay their taxes to them.
Civil service, yeah.
So I believe that we should be able to have, and that would then very much clear up the data for us, or our concerns on how these officers are engaging with our people. Because I believe that every single officer that works for the country, for the city, for the state, for the county, they are beholden to those citizens who they swear an oath to protect. And I believe that if we have people on there that are honest officers, the good officers that we talk about when we're talking about praising our officers, then I don't think that the honest ones should have a problem with the fact that your interactions are going to start being recorded, and those recordings will be filed, and we'll be able to pull those recordings at any given moment, because we need to make sure that the people that are out there being paid to serve and protect our communities are doing just that.
Okay. So yeah, so that pretty much clarifies a lot of the issues and a lot of the stuff like that, because again, these are huge concerns that I have seen constantly on multiple articles just being brought up over and over again. So obviously, I want to address those. But yeah, so moving on from this, what I want to answer this question before we get into the next topic. What are ways people can engage with Cite and Release? Whether it is to change it, I know, like, how can they make this change that we're talking about happen? How can they address these issues that we have brought up to actually, be like, hey, I don't believe this is a good Cite and Release proposal. I would love to have my input, or I would love to change it in some way. What can they do?
Well, we always are open to people reaching out to us via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that under Reliable Revolutionaries, or even our personal accounts. But also, I know there's other groups like SA Stands that does this work and things like that. And I encourage everybody who's interested to get involved. Get involved, find out what's going on, research your local laws, get in contact with people. Because I know for our organization, we welcome everybody to the table to try to help get some of these issues resolved. And we like to balance our ideas off of other people, because we know that we don't have every answer, and not everything that we think is always going to be 100% correct. But the more of us that sit down and have these discussions, the more in line we can get with where we should be going. So I think that that's the best way to get involved, and also come down to city council and let your voice be heard. Whether you're an advocate for or against, it's important that you make your voice heard and come to the table bringing something that says, hey, you know what, I don't like this, but what if we go with this? So that's what I believe.
Josie?
Absolutely. That and register to vote. If you're not already registered to vote, you need to register to vote, because a lot of these policy changes that we're working on and we're trying to move forward with, like, we need you at the polls in May. We need you at the polls when Cite and Release is added. And I said in May because, of course, we have, the petition that's going to be on the polls. And, of course, we also have Pharaoh Clark running for District 2 City Councilman. So we need you in May. If you are a District 2 a District 2 resident, then reach out to us at info@Pharaoh Clark so that we can get you on our campaign to get Pharaoh elected, because what we vowed to do is to be present and to hold our elected officials accountable. And it has to be everybody. It can't just be me and Pharaoh and Justice. We need you. We really need you to show up and show out and let your voice be heard. We try to be active on social media in the aspect of sharing any information that's coming up, ways to get involved. But yeah, just by reaching out to any of us, you can definitely be a part right now of making these policy changes.
Okay, so just reach out to like iStands or you guys personally and stuff like that. So there's no way they can't reach out to like the DA, or they can't reach out to
Absolutely. I mean, of course, they can reach out to the DA, as we mentioned earlier. A lot of advocacy has been done through phone calls. So call the DA's office, call the assistant DA's office. There's now a new civil rights review board, civil rights council with the DA's office. So I bet you that they're more than ready to taking your calls, and this is definitely a civil rights issue right now. So be proactive, let them know, because a lot of times when we show up with our issues, they're like, says who? They say that there's no issue because there's not enough of us that are showing up and saying that there is an issue.
Okay. So and for everyone who's watching, if you're watching this on YouTube, I don't know if I got this out in time or not, but January 12th, literally tomorrow, is the public hearing of the new Cite and Release proposal. They will be discussing what items will be going on the proposal, as well as some other stuff with DA Joe Gonzalez, and other officials. I can't remember all their names. I know Miss Shannon is one of them. I forgot her first name though. But they will be discussing tomorrow, January 12th, at a public hearing about Cite and Release. So I highly encourage that you do exactly what these two have said. You call, email, do what you can, leave a comment if you can. And I will hopefully have all of that information down below. If it is after the event, and I was not able to get this out there, then I highly recommend still doing that anyway. And I will leave up any relevant information down below. So moving on to the new topic of, so I hear you guys are doing an MLK March. Now, I was told that MLK March was going to be virtual this year because of the pandemic, or the panorama. And so I want to know how you guys how you guys are going to plan on doing this. Are you guys actually doing an MLK March? What's going down with that?
So we're not actually hosting an MLK March. What we're doing is hosting an MLK Caravan. Mm-hmm. So due to COVID and COVID restrictions, we knew that they wanted to cancel the march this year for safety reasons. And we agreed with that. We wanted to make sure everybody was safe. But at the same time, we also know that the MLK means not only a lot to the country, but he also meant a lot to this city. And we fought very hard in this city. And I don't mean by me, Josie, and Justice. I mean our ancestors and the people that came before us in the past that fought to get this march accomplished. And it's grown to one of the biggest marches. We have one of the largest marches every year in the entire nation. And so that shows that we have not only a great diverse community here, but we have people that really want to represent and stand for what Dr. King stood for. And we felt that it was very devastating to completely do away with the march. So we felt even if we did it on a smaller scale, if we had a caravan and we were able to drive and go, we follow the same route that usually is followed through the march. But instead, we would do it on a caravan. We keep everybody mobile, everybody in their vehicles. So this way, we make sure that we're at the same time, we're honoring Dr. King's legacy, mm-hmm. while at the same time staying COVID safe.
Okay. Any experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's second nature for us to want to show up and show out for Martin Luther King Day. I mean, we have protested all summer long. We have fought against the COVID-19 virus, and we feel like it is our duty, not only as civil rights activists who are carrying on a legacy, but also we have a duty to our community. Mm-hmm. And our community, revolutionaries, they want to be out on the day that Martin Luther King, brought us the dream. We want to keep the dream alive. And so we've compromised by keeping it COVID safe, but we are going to be out there in a caravan, because at the end of the day, if there's no justice, there's no peace. And we have to continue on with bringing that message to our city.
Okay. So then I ask for the people who think that they want to do the MLK virtual. They want to, why do you think it would be important for them to come out and show up to this MLK March? Because there's obviously a lot of stuff, but some people say, well, it's died down. There hasn't really been any protests or anything in a long time. and all this other stuff. So like, why do you think it would be important for people to come out to this caravan as opposed to just going to the virtual MLK meeting?
I encourage them to do both. I encourage them to watch the virtual march, but I also encourage those that can get involved to get involved because of things just like what you said. They believe that we've already died down. They believe we've already kind of gone away. And when you're talking about civil rights, that's something that you cannot afford to happen. We have not died down. We have not gone away. We are still here fighting the same fight that was started many, many years ago by some of our great civil rights leaders. And we have to be up on in the forefront, especially on a day as important as MLK Day. So I think that that's very important that we show up and that we show numbers. And again, we stay safe and COVID friendly, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we keep his legacy alive and we don't allow people to believe that we forget that we've gone away or that they can take this away next year, the year after that, or the year after that. They need to know that when it comes to MLK, San Antonio shows up and shows out.
Okay. Is there any place they can go to like find out information about this? Like, is there a place they should go, or is it just, they know, they don't? Is there a place where they can find information to see what you guys are doing for this MLK caravan?
It will be uploaded on our website, reliablerevolutionaries.com, as well as on our Facebook, reliable.revolutionaries. So we'll get that and we'll get that going pretty soon. I think we have to work out like the final details and we can put that up. But other than that, it's the same route that is usually taken. We start right there at on Freedom Bridge, which is right next to the Boys and Girls Club. And then it's just a straight caravan that goes all the way down MLK, ending at Pittman Sullivan.
Okay, cool. So I guess those are all the main questions that I could get and that I have seen. Do you guys, I guess, to wrap up this whole entire stream, to wrap up this whole entire interview and conversation, do you guys have anything going on in your lives right now? Anything that you'd like to promote? Anything you'd like to share with the community? Any final thoughts that you'd like to give out? Pharaoh, we'll start with you, and then we'll jump over to Josie.
I just want to say, I think that it's very important that people that don't understand the issue, or whether you're on this side of the issue or that side of the issue, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you get involved, that you educate yourself. Don't close your mind off. Hear all sides before you make a decision. And I'd like to leave off with the quote that's from Dr. King, which is, the measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of controversy. And I think that that's what we need to understand. Now we are at a time where it's time for people to make a stand, make a choice, and decide what side of history you want to be on. And I think that that's what we're dealing with here, not only with the Martin Luther King March, but also with our Cite and Release. It's time to make a stand in history and say, what side are we going to be on? Are we going to be on the side of the oppressor, or are we going to be on the side of the liberator?
And Josie?
I would want to say to you that you please get involved. We need everybody on board with this. We're also actively collecting stories of police brutality. If you could drop us a message at Reliable Revolutionaries SA on Facebook. We're collecting stories of police abuse and police accountability in San Antonio, because we're trying to bring more stories to the forefront. The most disheartening thing for us is to be told that there's no issue because we're not reporting issues. And we know that's furthest from the truth from the work that we've done with the families of police brutality victims. And so please send us your stories, because we're working on a way to inform and educate the public right now. And also with the Cite and Release, please stay up to date, stay informed on different things that are happening. We're going to do our best to keep everything on social media. And also, we will also be running a campaign for District 2 City Council. So if you want to be a part of our campaign team, please message us at info@pharaohjclark.com. And we hope to see you all. It's going to take a village, literally. And a lot of us are getting together with other groups and organizations. And it's not just us who's doing this MLK caravan. There's several organizations, several civil rights organizations that are getting together to make this happen. And be a part, become civically engaged in your city. Your voice is powerful, and we've seen that. So please keep speaking out. Don't be afraid to have these uncomfortable conversations.
Okay. And then I guess I'll leave off with where can they find you? Pharaoh, where can people get a hold of you, quick access and stuff like that? And then we'll go back to Josie.
You can always find me on Facebook at Pharaoh Clark. I'm also open to the public. Anyone can reach out to me and call me at any time at 210-994-2462.
Oh my gosh, you just gave out your number like that?
Yeah, oh man, all the time. I get calls at 2, 3 in the morning from people that just want to make sure that I kept true to my word, that I answer at any time.
Hey, Justice, don't forget we're community-led, brother.
I'm not joking. I get calls at 2 in the morning. They're like, I just wanted to know if you would answer. I'm like, yes, thank you. I answer. But no, yeah, I feel that it's important as community leaders that we're accessible to our community. And so that's one of the main things. Even when I first came out with in the beginning of the marches, if you noticed on those papers that were going around with the petition, my phone number was on each and every one of them. And the news people contacted me. They said, "Are you crazy? Why would you put your phone number on this?" And I said, because I want the public to have access to me. I feel far too often we have people that put themselves to try to help us or lead us or guide us, and we have no access to them. And in order to get in touch with them, you have to go through 6 different assistants, and you still never get a hold of them. And so with me, I wanted to come out and be completely different. I wanted to make sure that if you had my direct line, you were able to get a hold of me. If not me, someone that's directly next to me, that will make sure I get back to you.
Wow. Okay. And what about you, Josie? How can they get a hold of you? How can they contact you or see what you're doing?
Josie Garcia on Facebook, Josey Garcia on Facebook. My number is 210-781-9935. Hey, we're community organizers. The community has to get a hold of us. So, day or night, give us a call, give us a text. We're here to be your voice.
Wow, that is very bold. I'm not going to give my number out. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not that. I am open and I have avenues and I respond to stuff, but I am not going to give you my phone number because there's too many things that can go wrong with that. But yes, thank you so much, Pharaoh. Thank you so much, Josie. You guys have their personal phone number. You guys don't even need their social media. You can literally just go like, oh yeah, I got them. Thank you guys so much for having this interview with me, having this conversation about both Cite and Release, the Mlk March, and everything going on in the community. I love doing stuff like this. I love asking questions and learning about stuff that I, otherwise didn't know. And hopefully we get to do something like this again in the future. I would really love that. But yeah, like you said, if you want to check them out, please check them out. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, like, share, comment down below. Hey, while we're on openness, if you have any questions, comment down below. If you're on YouTube, just about anything. Just do you have any questions for the people who are watching that you want to give them that they can just write down in the little chat?
No, I was gonna ask if they have any questions for us.
Okay, yeah. So then there you go. Just put down any question you have towards Pharaoh or Josie. Just go ahead and ask them down below, and maybe we can do something about it, or maybe you'll see them down below and they'll respond to you on YouTube. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Pharaoh, Josie, thank you guys so much for being here with me and just hanging out with me and talking to me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Justice. I appreciate you. Thank you.
And as always, you guys be awesome 100%, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.